quarterbacks. And I think we go about this in two different ways. Something that Hey Dad talked about last night on Thunder and Lightning, the radio show, which made its debut immediately after Sports Talk Mississippi last night, was Mississippi State and its recruitment going forward of a dual threat quarterback. I remember the first time you said that on this show a couple of months ago, and I was like, huh? Why would Mike Leach recruit a dual threat quarterback? So, larger conversation about quarterback recruiting, Mike Leach, Mississippi State overall. If Mike Leach is recruiting a dual threat quarterback, and we know he is, why?
That's a great question. And it's not just for this year, too. He's got one quarterback offer out for next year. It's Trey Petty, the kid from Starkville, who is very much a dual threat guy. And, I mean, that's a guy, I mean, you know this. You can't recruit, you can't offer your hometown school quarterback and not be willing to take him. That's not one where you can come back and pull an offer down the road. That would be bad business for everybody. So that looks like the way of the future for Mississippi State. I think the key thing to understand with Leach is I think he might be at a point where he realizes his offense needs to be not overhauled but tweaked. You know, he's probably seen the success of Lincoln Riley and what he's done at Oklahoma previous with his systems, but with a quarterback that can extend plays and make plays with his legs. And there's been some talk that the newest addition to the MSU coaching staff, Drew Hollingshead, being a younger guy, has sort of impressed on Leach that, hey, but we got to start thinking about this kind of stuff. We can't continue to just drop back into the pocket and go. Go ahead.
I was like, I've been trying to kind of wrap my mind around this because when you hear dual threat quarterback, what do you think? You think, okay, I
think Dak Prescott. That's what the first thing that comes to my head.
Okay, that's fair. But in today's offenses, you think option reads, not so much running, RPO scheme, all of those things. Mm-hmm. That's not what the air raid ever has been. And so I was trying to think, okay, what he's not going to go to that, I don't think.
Right.
So
he's not going to start calling quarterback draws. He's not going to start running a lot of option. What it's about is being able to keep plays alive while staying in the pocket. Watch Kyler Murray. I mean, he's the best example of this, is that he would stay in the pocket and keep plays alive while evading pressure.
But that's not even where I was going to go, because so many times when you think dual threat quarterback, you think, okay, this is a guy that primarily is going to make plays with his feet, and he can throw it some too. I wonder if Mike Leach is extremely selective with the idea of a dual threat quarterback where he gets an incredibly gifted passer who he believes he can teach his system, but who then does what Will Rogers, frankly, has not done a ton, but is available, and that's take off when it's there and has the ability to turn those into chunk plays.
And I always say the same thing. Highlight films are highlight films for a reason. They don't call them low-light films. But when you watch Chris Parsons' film, that's what he is. He's a passer. He's a passer, but he has the mobility, he has the escapability to make plays with his legs. The question I have, and this is what I talked about last night on the show, how do you because Parsons is class of 23, right? He's not going to be the starting quarterback at Mississippi State for 2-3 years at best, at absolute best. Mm-hmm. So how do you start incorporating some new philosophies and new tweaks and things like that into your offense now when you have Will Rogers and Sawyer Robertson behind him? Now, Robertson has a little bit more mobility than Rogers. Even though he's the bigger guy, you might think he's more of a pocket passer, but he can get outside the pocket a little bit, and he can do some things with his legs. Rogers, who I think is underrated a little bit as an athlete. I think people think he has no athleticism whatsoever. He can make some plays with his legs. I think his biggest issue last year sometimes was staying in the pocket for too long. That there were opportunities like maybe he should go ahead and get out, and he would hang in there, which is what I think Leach wants. I think he wants him to hang in the pocket and try to make plays down the field. So what are you doing now to incorporate these potential tweaks into your offense so that when you get to Chris Parson potentially, you're full bore and you're ready to go and everybody's on the same page and it's not year one of trying to figure this out?
That's interesting. It's just it's so hard conceptually to think.
Mm-hmm.
Dual threat quarterback, Mike Leach. Chase says it's common sense. They had their most success last year when there was at least the threat that you could run the ball. Night and day difference in that offense when they can pull in even the fourth rusher and create space past the line of scrimmage. He's right about that.
And with running the ball, I think State's going to be a little, and I'm not saying run heavy, but run heavier this year. I think Johnson and Marks will have a little bit bigger role in the offense as far as the running game because that's what you saw last year. They were at their best. Texas A&M, LSU, they ran the ball pretty effectively early in the game. They got away from it, and that's what hurt them. But then Kentucky and Auburn, they ran the ball effectively in those games, and they were the two best offensive games they played all year.
Did you see the angst when Haydad said they got away from that, which is what hurt him? I mean,
I remember that Monday.
He just saw red, just momentarily.
I mean, it drove me insane. Just sit in the press box like, why did they get away from the running game? I say it all the time, man. Nobody gets away from what works faster than a college football coach. Something works, they're just like, throw that page away, never again. Mullen did it, Moorhead did it, Leach will do it too.
Yeah. The conversation, Vork, you got thoughts on that before we move on? Because we'll do it in the next segment.
Yeah, y'all covered it pretty well. What I kept thinking, though, through the recruiting conversation was there is such a stigma that gets attached to the label dual threat that you automatically think, as you pointed out,
yes,
not the best passer, but he's a good athlete. And that's not exactly what it means anymore. Take Justin Fields, I think, is a great example. He's a dual threat quarterback, but he's going to play a traditional quarterback for the Chicago Bears, and when stuff breaks down, he will beat people with his legs. That's what Justin Fields is.
You know who I can imagine in a Mike Leach offense putting up numbers that boggle the mind?
C.J. Stroud.
He's obviously not eligible now, so I'm rewinding.
Oh.
Can you imagine Joe Burrow? Because nobody labeled Joe Burrow as a dual threat anything. But he was far more athletic than he ever got credit for, and he played with an edge and didn't mind tucking it and running. A guy with that type of accuracy and that type of arm to push it down the field to playmakers, but also when he sees a lane is willing to go get 17 yards, that would be scary. I mean, scary.